We can get reaction now from the Pakistani government to some of those claims made against them. I'm joined now by Musharraf Zaidi, a spokesperson for the Pakistani Prime Minister. Mrs. Zaidi, thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. We've just heard some of the interview from Imran Khan's sons. I just want to get your reaction to some of the allegations that they're making.
Well, first of all, Yalda, thank you for having me. I think today is a really important day. Your program began with coverage of Bondi Beach. I know as someone that also is from multiple places, how personal that is for you. I think just for your viewers, this is also the 11th anniversary of the Army Public School attack in which 143 children were slaughtered in Pakistan, in Peshawar, by terrorists. So I think just watching the show and thinking about Bondi Beach and all the victims there, thinking about our own heroes. We had a teacher, her name was Tahira Qazi, who fought the terrorists and protected the children. I think, that's kind of the spirit that really the government has, is how can we find ways of working with people and reducing temperatures? And so to your point about, and your question about this interview, I think as a father and a son, I think my heart goes out to, all three of his kids, his whole family, his ex-wife, the fact that Annabelle passed away while he was in jail. These are all things that are heart-wrenching. And these are things that have happened before. You would know that former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's wife passed away while he was in jail when former Prime Minister Imran Khan was still in office. We have this cycle, and I think the cycle continues in part because our country's really struggled to establish order and stability. We live in a tough neighborhood. We're surrounded by Iran, Afghanistan, China, and India. These are big countries. Because of my new role, I'm not allowed to say anything disparaging about any country, and I would never. But it is a very tough neighborhood. And so when we have domestic unrest, a lot of enemies of Pakistan use that unrest to further deepen the divide, to exploit people's needs.
But just on this particular point, I mean, the fact that the boys are talking about solitary confinement, the fact that they're talking about him being in this solitary confinement for an extended period of time. And I just want to read to you what the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Alice Jill Edwards, said.
I've read what Alice has said. I've read what Jared Genser has been saying. These are people that we respect a lot.
And let me just inform our audience what they've said. They said Khan's solitary confinement should be lifted without delay. Not only is it an unlawful measure, extended isolation can bring about very harmful consequences to his physical and mental health. Your response to that?
Well, I'm nobody to respond. I think his own sister. Sure, yeah. but I think on the condition of Imran Khan, his own sister is the best spokesperson for his condition because she's the one that's met him in the last 10 days twice.
Even today,
and she came out
they weren't
today
able,
and
they weren't
today,
able to go today.
No. There was a meeting yesterday. There was a meeting 5 days ago, and in those.
Today is the day of being able to see Imran Khan. Family members have not been able to go in.
That goes back and forth, and so I want to run some numbers by you, but you have to give me a moment.
No,
to get through
I absolutely will, but I just want to kind of get your response to the solitary confinement.
That is what I'm going to respond to,
okay,
because I think the term solitary confinement, death cell, proof of life. You've used the term proof of life a lot of times, and I've been thinking. I can't wait to talk to Yalda.
But you saw the rumours that circulated on social media because there was no proof of life.
But Yalda, you and Richard did a
on
show on AI-generated interviews and disinformation, and then it's almost like the same people that are victims of disinformation, in this case it was you and it was the person that you were purportedly interviewing.
Imran Khan's sister.
Right, yeah. And when the same people become victim to, and I'm not suggesting this, but when it seems like they themselves are propagating disinformation, that becomes a real complex challenge.
That's why
let me go through the numbers.
I want you to address the solitary confinement and why the international community, the UN, is saying it's unlawful.
Well, I think the UN folks have been watching Sky News too much, so maybe they need to chill.
I mean, you would think the special rapporteur would know what she's talking about.
Like I said, I think Dr. Alice, Jared, these are huge names in their fields, and I think the government absolutely, Pakistan is very, very keen on multilateralism. It's really a way of life for Pakistani diplomacy.
I want to keep you focused. Go ahead.
On this, Imran Khan's been incarcerated for about 860 days. how many unique visits, interviews is what we call them in our system, do you think he's had in those 860 days?
You tell me, you've got the numbers.
He's supposed to get, as you said, one every week.
Correct.
And it's been about 112 weeks. He's had 870. But just on his family, he's had 137 meetings with his sisters, 45 with Alima, 49 with Uzma, 43 with Nori. Now, Uzma's numbers are a bit outdated. I think he's had 2 more since then.
So can you...
These are 137, 140-ish
So help me understand why the boys haven't spoken to him on the phone.
I'll come to that in a second.
4 months for one and 5 months for
I'll
another.
come to that in a second. But this doesn't sound like solitary confinement to me. But let me give you more. Let me give you more.
Okay.
He's had 451 interviews with his lawyers. 451.
Well, right now,
in 860
the UN is saying that he hasn't got adequate medical attention.
Let me get to the medical. Let me get to the medical. I have a list. I have a list of 30-plus visits. Not only by the way, there was some talk about military. There's no military doctors. In fact, Dr. Faisal Sultan...
So his personal physician is allowed to see him?
Dr. Faisal Sultan has seen him...
His personal physician is allowed to see him?
Yeah, absolutely. And they have seen him multiple times. Again, luckily,
I mean,
I was.
Why is the UN Special Rapporteur saying this? Why is the family saying that they didn't know where he was
because
for 4 weeks?
they're being misinformed.
Why today are the sisters still waiting outside the jail and they're not allowed to go in?
The sisters aren't waiting outside the jail.
I was told it was
Imran Khan supporters.
2 o'clock in the morning and they're still outside.
It's almost 3 now, and
they apparently
there's been lots of instances of protests, and in fact, part of the reason that there was a gap. So I want to get to, since you asked the question, and I know what the question is, because of course I've tried to prepare, there was a gap of about 3.5 weeks in which the meetings were suspended. Now, those meetings were suspended because in every instance, there was a huge security issue that was being created. Every interaction that the former Prime Minister, Imran Khan, has had with his lawyers, with his family, becomes a political meeting.
So then,
wait. Now, you read me some stuff. Now I want to read you Rule 265.
But listen, I want to get.
If you never let me finish a point, I'm never going to get to really answer any of your questions.
I will. But you're throwing stats at me, and all I know is I've spoken to his...
I'm just trying to respond to questions. I would never throw anything at you.
When I spoke to his sons today, they've said that they haven't spoken to their father for 5 months. Why?
So his last phone call was in September. I'm not sure whether one of the boys was on it or not. But like I said, I don't want to get into, and I don't think anyone in this government or in any government anywhere would want to get into an argument with 2 young men who have not seen their father in a long time, but against whom there is no sanction to not see or not speak to their father. None. Now let me get through. The most important part of this conversation.
Go ahead. Give me
Rule
that line.
265 of the prison rules. The boys and everybody quite rightly say rule of law. Follow the rules. Listen to the court order.
Including the solitary confinement.
So I've already dealt with this.
No, but
this is not solitary confinement.
This is what you're saying. He's being...
Jemima Goldsmith is complaining to Elon Musk. Let's go through solitary confinement. Jemima Goldsmith,
go ahead.
You have to let me finish.
Okay, go ahead. But I have given you time.
But you haven't let me finish a single one of my responses.
But you haven't addressed the solitary confinement.
I have responded to all your questions. I have.
You've thrown numbers of the number of times the family have visited him. That is separate to him being kept in solitary confinement for up to 23 hours in the day.
He's labeled something called a superior class prisoner.
But you know international law around solitary confinement. You cannot, for extended period of time...
I can't really answer your question if you don't let me answer.
But I'm responding to you. I mean, you understand the international law around solitary confinement.
If I get 2 words and then you cut me off because they sound like they're going against whatever narrative you've been convinced. And I know how, by the way, I know where this is coming from. Your questions are coming from a place of genuinely seeking the truth and seeking justice.
And
so in order to do justice to the conversation, I've dealt with that. I think that these are honest people who are dealing with bad information. And so what I'm trying to do is provide you information, but you don't let me get all of it out. I'm going to read Rule 265. You can see it's not a very long paragraph, but you got to let me finish.
No, I can't allow you to just read.
Can I read one sentence then?
Read me the one sentence, and then I need you to respond to a couple of things. The discussion
of political matters shall not be allowed at these interviews. That is a blanket discussion. Now, the reason that's important is Jemima Goldsmith complains to Elon Musk about her tweets being throttled. You got to let me finish. Since he went into jail, from his account, there have been 575 tweets, Yalda. 575 tweets for a prisoner who is not allowed to have political matters discussed at these interviews. Interviews taking place under apparently solitary confinement. Look, the narrative is what it is, and I understand that there's a lot of folks in the UK who really love Imran Khan, and we all respect that. People are free to do that, but they are not allowed to manufacture their own facts.
Zaidi, let me talk about...
My first name is Musharraf. You can call me Musharraf.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Zaidi. I can call you Musharraf. But look, you're saying this today, but I'm just going to pull up a couple of your posts on Twitter, one from May 9th, 2023.
Is this from before I was working for the government or after?
Before that you were working for the government. The day Imran Khan was arrested, you wrote on social media, and I'm going to pull it up on my screen. You say, Imran Khan's arrest is disgraceful. It reconfirms that Pakistan will not be able to become a normal country anytime soon. Any election process that denies Khan or anyone else the chance to compete freely will be a compromised election. You go on in 2024, in January 2024, again before you joined government, you repeated a similar sentiment, saying Imran Khan's jail sentence is another indication of the system-wide barrier to his participation in the political process. It will validate his supporters' belief that the system is rigged to deny him and his party the path back to Prime Minister's office. Do you stand by these tweets that you put out?
At the time that I tweeted them, absolutely. What happened in the time since these tweets were written
and worked for government?
Well, other things happened too, Yalda. Pakistan was attacked by a country almost 10 times its size and was able to defend itself reasonably well, even though it has trouble, the country has trouble convincing folks that that's the case. Not only was it attacked by India, but there was an attack from Iran, and there's constant terrorist attacks from Afghanistan.
But what does that have to do with Imran Khan's treatment in jail?
The circumstances of the way in which Pakistan has to deal with its local security and governance challenges.
Are you saying Imran Khan is a threat?
Fundamentally.
A national security threat?
Absolutely.
Is that why the defense minister responded to my deep fake as though it was real news? The defense minister of Pakistan put out a statement as though the deep fake that was created between me and Imran Khan's sister, talking about the India-Pakistan war, which was totally fake. He responded to it as real news. I mean, if we are going to talk about disinformation...
The defense minister is in his mid-70s, and he's an old-fashioned guy. He fell for fake news. You're Yalda Hakim, like at the top of your game, at the top of the map, and you're falling for fake news as well. You keep repeating solitary confinement. You keep talking about death cell and proof of life. That's all manufactured. So if Khwaja Asif, the poor old defense minister, falls for some AI stuff, and Yalda Hakim falls for this disinformation, then our job is to basically be candid and frank with each other and share facts, which I've tried to do in this conversation.
Can I just say, is Alice Jill Edwards, the UN Special Rapporteur on torture, lying? Is the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention...
I don't think anybody's lying. I think people are consuming bad information. They're consuming misinformation.
You don't think the UN investigates these things thoroughly enough? They just put out statements? Based on false information?
But I have a gripe with you on a totally separate issue, which is that you haven't visited Pakistan in God knows how many years. It's been decades since you were in Pakistan.
It was not. I was there about 9 years ago.
Almost a decade.
But if you give me a visa, I'd happily come.
Listen,
look. Would you give me an interview with Imran Khan?
Well, we'll give you an interview with the sitting prime minister. I'm not sure that
happy to do that.
I'm not sure that, given the prison rules that I just cited, that we'll be allowed to afford Sky News the chance to break Pakistan's laws. I think people want rule of law, but they want it very specifically in circumstances that allows Imran Khan to enjoy total freedom at a time of incarceration. The whole purpose of once you're a convicted criminal is that you're in jail and you lose your freedom.
The fact that the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention termed Khan's detention arbitrary
Alice has also
and
not
politically motivated. I mean, that's the UN Working Group saying it's politically motivated.
It's the Special Rapporteur.
No, the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, they termed Khan's detention arbitrary and politically motivated.
Also based on no on-the-ground investigation. They have not visited the country. Neither has Dr. Alice Jill Edwards.
Why don't you allow them
Jared
into
Genser,
the country to
neither
spend
has
time?
Yalda. They haven't asked.
I'm asking you.
I just told you. Listen, so visa officer is slightly below sort of my pay grade, but I'm still happy to put in a call. And anytime you want to visit Pakistan, we'll welcome you with open arms. I think we're so proud of the excellent work that you do. We're concerned about how much disinformation is getting across your filters, but other than that, we would be happy to welcome you to Pakistan. There's a lot to talk about in Pakistan. We're going to privatize our national airline. We've gone, our credit default swap rate was at 40%. It's gone down to 4%. Our inflation was at 40%. It's gone down to 4%. There's a real story in Pakistan, and the one you're covering isn't it.
No, the treatment of a former prime minister being described as arbitrary detention,
treated
politically
like a prince,
motivated.
meeting 870 times with his lawyers, his family.
I ask you to defer to the UN Special Rapporteur on torture. Musharraf Zaidi, I'm sorry, I've got 10 seconds before the top of the hour. Thank you so much for joining us.
I really appreciate you having me on.